Hi everyone, Steve Johnson here. Welcome back to part 2 of latent linguistic evidence. We're talking about the Katelyn Markham case. Again, I'm Steve Johnson, 34-year investigator, consultant, trainer. This series here with the Katelyn Markham case is to highlight the linguistic evidence that is manifested in our language. This is one of those things that is so effective. In my law enforcement investigative career, it is the #1 thing, the most effective tool that I ever learned and used in my interviews and my investigations. And it's the purpose of this channel is to showcase the effectiveness of any type of statement analysis, linguistic analysis, statement profiling, whatever you want to call it. What is found in the language always reflects what is in the mind. So we're going to continue on with the Katelyn Markham case, and in my previous video we went through John Carter's 911 call when he called to report that his fiancée Katelyn Markham was missing. And fortunately for us, within just a few days of him reporting Katelyn is missing, he did a couple interviews with the local news station. And so we have a couple of those. When I listened to these for the first time, I was absolutely blown away by how much information he was leaking out. His brain could not contain it. It was leaking so much information. So I'm excited to play these for you. You will see that the brain cannot contain the information it knows. There is so much stress upon a person mentally and physiologically when they attempt to withhold information that it's very difficult to contain. And by the way, a lot of information, a lot of statements are actually true in nature. Most people do not lie by telling an outright lie. Most people are not deceptive by telling an outright lie. Most people are deceptive by telling the truth, but simply withholding information. Now, that said, I do know, and I have dealt with a lot of people that just outright lied. And John Carter's one of those that he has a mixture of lying about things as well as withholding information. And there's always either way, there's always clues of deception along the way. It's like a breadcrumb trail. They lead us right to the truth. If you know what to look for, you have to know what to look for. And this is something that can be used by not only criminal investigators, but anybody in hiring, human resources, corporate investigations, legal analysis, and anyone in their everyday life, whether you're dealing with family members, neighbors, friends, veterinarians, whoever it is. And I don't mean to, I'm not bagging on veterinarians. I know a lot of good veterinarians. I'm just saying anybody you deal with, there's information within the language that comes out. So that said, let's jump into one of the first media interviews that John Carter did. So this was done 4 days after Katelyn was reported missing, and the community's out searching everywhere. John Carter was out there. You'll see he was out there with them, but media got a hold of him and interviewed him. So I'll play the clip, and then I'm going to interrupt now and then to explain what we're seeing here. All right, here we go.
Carol is off tonight. There is still no sign of a Fairfield woman who's been missing since Saturday night. 9 News reporter Bryce Onslinger is live in Fairfield with what authorities are doing now to find Katelyn Markham. Bryce?
Well, Clyde, Markham should be celebrating her 22nd birthday tonight. Instead, friends, family, and other volunteers have been searching the streets of Fairfield looking for any sign of her. As Fairfield firefighters and police officers pack up for the night, volunteers talk about what's next in the search for Katelyn Markham.
Nobody knows anything. She just disappeared.
Markham is a family friend of Casey Sargent. He, along with several others, were out walking through Fairfield neighborhoods today, looking for the missing woman for the second night in a row.
Yesterday we were pretty much walking through people's yards and checking garbage cans and sheds and whatever was not unlocked.
Investigators say Markham's fiancé, John Carter, was the last person to see her.
She always had to make a list. She always had to do things that, that would prepare her. So she would never be a whim kind of a person. She wouldn't just up and go. It's totally out of character.
Carter says...
Okay, the first thing I want to point out here is, if you noticed, he referred to Katelyn in the past tense. She's only been missing for a few days now, okay? We as human beings have a very difficult time processing death of loved ones. This is his fiancée, and he's already processing that she is not coming back. That is a huge red flag. People that have processed that quickly typically know or have a reason to know or believe that their loved one is not coming back. And so this is a huge red flag when they've already processed and are already referring to them in the past tense. We found out later that through the investigation that John had been referring to Katelyn in the past tense from the very beginning of her disappearance to in his conversation with her friends and family. So this is just a continuation of that. He has already processed.
Character.
Carter says Markham was fine when he left her townhome on Dorshire Drive at around 11 Saturday night. He says Markham was headed to bed after the two had talked about their plans for a trip to Colorado in November. Carter says the couple was hoping to move there.
We'd been talking about going to Colorado for days. I mean, if she was scared, she would have said something.
Okay. They've been talking about going to Colorado for days. If she was scared, she would have said something. Where does that come from? Where in the world did that even come from? That just told you that Katelyn was very concerned or scared about going to Colorado with John. What's going to be most pressing on John's mind right now is his last memories with Katelyn. And it's very likely that they had an argument. We know from the 911 call, he overemphasized that there was no argument when dispatch asked, but later we learned through his interview that there had been a little bit of a disagreement that night and about going to Colorado. So we now know that Katelyn was scared. She likely did not want to go to Colorado with him. And her friends, since the investigation, the initial investigation, we have learned that her friends have stated that she, in fact, did not want to go to Colorado with him. In fact, she wanted to break off their engagement. She didn't like John. A lot of what John was doing. John was not going anywhere in life. He was just delivering pizzas with no other plans. He was smoking dope quite a bit. He was watching a lot of porn, and quite frankly, her friend said that she did not enjoy what he wanted to do in their personal lives, and so she didn't want to go with him. And John was pretty upset by that. So let's see what else he has to say.
Police say Markham's cell phone is gone, but her car and purse were left at her home. Investigators say there is no evidence of foul play, but there's also no reasonable explanation for where Markham could be.
I don't know who would do it, or if anybody did it, or I don't know.
I don't know who would do it, or if anybody did it. John has already gone to the worst case scenario that something happened to Katelyn, somebody did it. And it kind of implies that some physical type of trauma is what that implies. There's an argument that it didn't mean that, and that's fine. But he's gone to worst case scenario, okay? That she's either been kidnapped or harmed, And so, once again, he's processed this. He likely has information about this. Couple that with referring to her in the past tense, you don't have to look any farther than John Carter, okay? He's processed her death, and he knows that she's not coming back. Now, one little more tidbit here.
No, it's so up in the air that I just want Katelyn back.
I just want Katelyn back. That word "just" is a minimizer. It's much different. I just want Katelyn back is different than I want Katelyn back. I miss her so much. Anytime that they use "just," it's kind of like comparing to another thought. It's a minimization, if you will, psychologically. And we hear this in different types of cases. One that comes to mind is a case that I was not personally involved with, but another person that I worked with at the police department. It was regarding an assault of a child, and as this particular officer was searching the surrounding area where the child was found, there were some teenagers in a jacuzzi, and he asked them, there's like 5 of them, and he asked them if they knew anything about what had happened nearby, and 4 of them said no. One of them said, "Hey, we're just here swimming." He ignored the question and used that word "just," and I'm telling you, more times than not, when they do that, they're trying to minimize the situation somewhat. And that was the suspect. That's the guy that had actually assaulted that little kid. And so the officer picked up on that, the word "just." So there you go. That's the first interview with John Carter regarding Katelyn's disappearance. Let's go to the second one.
Allegedly C. Markham was her fiancé, John Carter. We've been trying to reach him for reaction, but we've had no luck. Here's what he told us about a week after Markham went missing in August of 2011.
I keep believing that if she is somewhere in the worst case scenario, that she fights her way out. I keep wanting to believe that because she's strong. I know she's strong. So she's got to manage to make her way out.
9 on your side investigative reporter Jason Law just got off the phone with Fairfield's chief of police. He tells Jason that Carter is not a person of interest or a suspect at this time. In fact, he says they're not focused right now on any individual. We will stay on top of the story and bring you the latest updates on air and on WCPO.com.
Okay. So John said, I keep believing in the worst case scenario. Again, going to the worst case scenario, but he said that she fights her way out. Why would those words come out of his brain? There's something beneath the surface of the words that is pushing those forward. It's latent content, latent information, critical latent evidence, linguistic evidence is what this is. It tells us that in his mind, he knows that Katelyn is in some type of situation where she would have to fight her way out, okay? So it's highly likely that Katelyn, when we find her, is going to be found in some type of, she's going to be encased in some way. That's something that she would have to fight her way out of. That was his words, and it's something that is so significant that you cannot ignore it. Where did it come from? He knows, it's an indication that he knows that she is in some situation where she would have to fight her way out. What we've learned now is that when her body was found, it was found in her skeletal remains were found wrapped in the landscaping underlayment material. So she was encased. She was enclosed in that material. We also now know that that is one of the things that they had on their search warrant, the investigators had on their search warrant, and John Carter's mom still lives in the same house that where he lived with her when Katelyn disappeared. We know that his vehicle backed up into his mom's garage a little after midnight along with another vehicle, a blue Saturn, and then with the headlights off, went the 1,000 yards over towards Katelyn's home. It's highly likely that they were loading up that landscaping material or wrapping her body up in it, one way or the other. That's one of the things that was on the search warrant, and they, as they searched Katelyn's mom's home. It's my understanding that they found it there. So what do you know? The linguistic evidence, it's right there. There's so much you can learn from what people say. Now, the other part is he says, she's strong. I know she's strong. I should have pointed it out. You can go back and look at it, but there were scratch marks found on the left side of John's neck. From looking at the video, what I can see is that they were low on his neck. And so different times you can, when the camera is at the right angle, you can see those scratch marks low on his neck. John claimed that they came from him using his electric razor. Then he changed his story a couple different times about those scratch marks. You might not be surprised to learn that a friend that was there earlier with John and Katelyn before she disappeared said that he didn't see scratch marks on John's neck earlier in the night. The next day, he had scratch marks. So John's saying, she's strong. I know she's strong. And it's probably an indication that Katelyn fought. Katelyn fought him. I hope she got some good licks in. I really do. She fought him. And she had to fight her way out. Okay, last video. I'm going to tell you before we even start, listen carefully for a denial, okay? John's has every opportunity in front of the cameras to deny any involvement with Katelyn's disappearance. This is a little bit after now. The investigation has been going on, and it's been some time. He's going to talk about being confronted by somebody that said that they thought the boyfriend did it. Listen for a denial. And think about whether or not you hear an appropriate denial.
A Fairfield College student missing for almost 2 weeks, and now people are starting to question one man. Good evening to you. I'm Cherie Palello.
I'm Jack Atherton, and that man is the one who called police when Katelyn Markham disappeared. Tonight, he talked with News 5's Stephanie Stone about the accusations.
Fairfield police didn't take much when they searched Katelyn's fiancé's house. Tonight he says he gave consent. He's doing whatever he can to help, even though he feels as if the entire community is pointing fingers and placing blame on him.
People are going to say what they're going to say. You can't stop them.
23-year-old John Carter may not be able to stop the comments, but he can certainly make sure that people know how he feels.
I'm not going to acknowledge the ridiculous things that people are saying, because I know, I mean, nobody's going to know about me. They don't know me, and I know me. I know that I would never hurt Katelyn, ever, in a million years.
Katelyn Markham, his fiancée and girlfriend of 6 years, flat out disappeared nearly 2 weeks ago. Since then, there have been search parties, a vigil, and an investigation. Fairfield police have little evidence and no suspects.
It's pretty much it. There's nothing, and it's horrific.
Carter was the last person to see her. They were at her home on Dorshire Drive. He says he left before midnight, but aside from a text he received from her a short time later, no one has seen or heard from Katelyn. Carter felt the animosity towards him when he was confronted while passing out flyers.
I guess he didn't know who I was, and he was just like, I heard the boyfriend did it, and I was just like, I'm the boyfriend. I would never do anything to hurt her.
There you have John has a perfect opportunity to give a denial, but he says, I'm the boyfriend, not her boyfriend, but I'm the boyfriend. Now he's mimicking the language that the person allegedly said to him, used on him. So I have to give him a pass there, but I would like it much more if he said, I'm her girlfriend or her boyfriend. and then he said, I would never hurt Katelyn in a million years. That is not a good denial. It's not a reliable denial. When we hear things like that, we can't latch onto them as something that's reliable. I would never, if she were here, I would never, future tense conditional. The better denial is, a good denial is, I didn't hurt her. I didn't hurt Katelyn. I'm not responsible for her disappearance. I'm not responsible for what happened to her. I didn't do it. Something like that, forceful, given often, right away, without any hesitation or lead-in. That's what a good denial is. And John did not give any of that. One other thing that he did mention in there, and he said, he used the word to describe, he used one word to describe Katelyn's disappearance as horrific. It's horrific, which is eerie when you think about it. You know, a disappearance is not horrific, okay? It's very disturbing, but horrific tends to lead towards his thought about what happened to Katelyn, okay? So we know now that Katelyn was murdered, and he's now been arrested for her murder, and his trial is coming up in June. Right now, when I'm making this video, it's April of 2024. His trial is in June of 2024, and coming up quick. So it tells me that word horrific that's another form of brain leakage, and it just tells me that whatever happened to Katelyn was horrific. We now also know that from the autopsy that on Katelyn's left wrist there were some incisions from some kind of blunt force trauma or something, some type of knife or weapon. We don't know what that was. I mean, it could be that he tried to dismember the body. There was a knife used in the murder. We don't know. The cause of death, I think, has been undetermined as far as we know. If it's been determined, it hasn't been released. So it's a fascinating case, as you've just seen in these last two videos. And there's even more to the case, but there's one aspect of it I want to point out. It's just a strange connection in this case, and that is the connection with a guy named Michael Strauss. You can look him up. I'm going to show you a picture here that has Katelyn and John Carter on the left, and the person that's right next to John Carter in the middle is Michael Strauss. So the other people involved are in that photo or have no involvement in anything that I'm going to talk about. So a few years after Katelyn disappeared and it was discovered that she was murdered, there was another murder of a female that lived in the area, and I know that some of you watching this and have watched the first video have made comments. One of you in particular was very, very close to the situation. So Michael Strauss ended up murdering a 23-year-old female. I think I have the age right. It's about the same age as Katelyn. And he murdered her. He had actually dated her when she was 17, and then later he stalked her and eventually lured her into where he was at under false pretenses as a different person, and he ended up kidnapping her and killing her. There were a lot of efforts made to make a connection between Michael Strauss's murder, or the murder that he committed, and the murder that John Carter committed, as they obviously knew each other. And it's just, how strange is that both would end up committing murders of females around the same age. There haven't been any connections made between the two homicides. one teaching the other, one helping the other, or anything like that. It looks like they both acted on their own. So no connections made. However, I will point out there is one connection between the two, and take it for what you will. It is a connection. The fact is a fact, and that's that they were both heavily into pornography. And I don't know what level John Carter was into it. I know it was enough that Katelyn didn't like it, and it was one of the factors in her decision to break off their relationship. Michael Strauss, on the other hand, was into just sadistic stuff. He was making a torture film and wanted to sell it. So here's the thing, is that there have been multiple studies, you can look them up, on the effects of pornography on the brain. And the studies say that it is just like any other drug. Now here's an interesting fact, is that human beings are naturally, we have this tendency to look for what's novel. And so take, for example, in a learning environment, and just go with me here for a second, but in a learning environment, when we hear something that we think that we have already heard or learned or mastered, we tend to shut it off. We tend to tune out what's being taught. And so we're looking for the next new thing. That's human tendency. We want what's novel, and that's just kind of human nature across the board. Marketers use this to their advantage. We're looking for, it's kind of like a dopamine hit, and there's many studies out there regarding the marketing, the dopamine hit in the brain, and but pornography is like a drug, and if, like any other drug, when it's abused, our brain senses that we need more. We need more for to get the same dopamine hit. We want more of that dopamine hit, and then it takes more to get it. And so that's the case with any drug, chemical that's abused. And pornography acts the same way on the brain. It takes more and more and more for more novelty, for that dopamine hit. And then what happens is the brain becomes dull to natural affections, desensitized, and then in Michael Strauss's case, to the point that a human being, a human female, was just literally an object for him, a way for him to make some money. I think the thrill probably for him was in that chase, and in that the setting up the whole thing. It was obviously he took his time, and that's what a lot of these predators do. They play the long game, and that's what Michael Strauss did. And so those of you that commented, one in particular commented that she had dated him once, and he kept showing up at a workplace, and to you, I would say you're very fortunate, and he probably viewed you as one that he could not victimize. So hats off to you. The steps that you took were such that he felt that he could not victimize you, so he did not keep pursuing that. So they look for the ones they can victimize, and that's predators across the board. So interesting connection. Michael Strauss is in custody. He's doing prison time now. Thank goodness he's off the street, because it's personalities like that will not stop. John Carter's personality is a little different. John Carter's personality is one of those that is more along the lines of if I can't have you, then nobody's going to have you. This was probably, I don't know for sure, but from what I can tell and my experience with these types of, being associated with these types of cases, is that they probably got into an argument. John is not the type of person that likes to lose an argument or the battle overall. And when he felt that he was out of control and it was going to end, that's when he lost it. And I'm, you know, a lot of these homicides, these domestic homicides, are crimes of passion. Things get out of control real fast. Some are planned. I know of several where they were planned. I don't know John's level of planning in this, or you know, how much of it was passion versus planning. But I will say that there's some elements in the, if you profile the scene, the case, there's elements of both, of planning and then things not going the way that he thought that they might go. So, and having to cover for it. But you know what? John was pretty successful in keeping Katelyn's body hidden for a long time. And there's also pretty good indication that he had that body somewhere and then moved it to that dump site where it was ultimately found. So lots of information coming out of John's brain. His brain cannot control the release of the information through his language. Every time he talks, there's more and more that comes out. It's just incredible. This is not an isolated thing to John Carter. This happens all the time. That's what makes this skill set of linguistic analysis so effective. It's extremely effective. It is such a game changer. And we're training individuals all the time. We're training corporations. We're training law enforcement and private individuals that have their own businesses. We're training people that are in human resources and hiring. And we're doing work for all these people as well on a consulting basis. We're solving cold cases with this. This is so effective that it's just extremely effective for cold case investigations. So if you really want to know the truth, if you want to know how to get to the truth, how to weed through the deception, you want to know if someone's telling you the truth, go check out my courses, truthtolies.com. I've got a couple different courses there. One is a little mini course, and the other is a course that's in person. I teach it. It's 3 days, 3 full days of information. The online course has a little bit of extra information material in there, thrown in there, including a little bit from the Lori Vallow Daybell case, which is going on right now as well. And so go check those out if you want to know how to get to the truth. And do me a favor, please, and click that subscribe button and let others know about this channel. Share the information with them. There'll be many more videos to come, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.